Good afternoon, this is Media Center Ukraine Odessa. We're starting our working day. And now we are having with us the representatives of the volunteer building battalion Dobrobat. The volunteers of the battalion have arrived to our venue to tell us about restoration of housing and social infrastructure facilities in the liberated territories of Ukraine. Here with us today, Oleksandr Yurko, head of the volunteer building battalion Dobrobat, Yuriy Osipov, head of the Mykolaiv branch building battalion Dobrobat, Andriy Razin, head of the Zaporizhzhia branch building battalion, and Larysa Bortovyk, head of the Kherson branch building battalion Dobrobat. I would like to give floor to Oleksandr, and for the first time, the battalion will report about its activities. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to share you some historical details about our battalion. In the late of March last year, me and my colleagues started discussing the idea of launching some volunteer project or a volunteer movement to support people who were affected by the hostilities. At that time, we couldn't even imagine that in almost a year we would reach the level of our activities that we have now. And back then, our main objective is to deal with the chaos that was happening around us. So we started discussing our idea and decided to launch first a pilot project to see if this project was needed. And back then, I had a small survey. I asked friends of mine who were involved in construction activities to know what was their opinion about our project. And a friend of mine told me, you know, Sasha, it is not very likely that this project could be successful because some people at that time had already left abroad or had left for other regions. So that friend told me there was no future for our project. But I did not take it seriously. And now I know why we have reached the scale that we have now. We didn't know that it was impossible. That's why we're successful. So we started the promotion of our initiative, the volunteer movement to reconstruct housing and social infrastructure facilities in the liberated territories. And it took only several days for around 2,000–3,000 of people join us. And that was the sign that our project could be successful. At first, we didn't have a lot of results. And for our first missions, were dedicated to dealing with rubble and debris. And then the State Emergency Service asked us to provide the volunteer working force to help them in Borodyanka in Kyiv Oblast. And we could delegate around 50 or even 60 persons there. Then we started organizing different missions ourselves in different regions. And at first, we were supported by local administrations, and we are very thankful to them for this. For example, they could provide a bus that we could use to go outside Kyiv. And this is how we reached the scale that we have now. And I would like to show you some statistics. So this is basing on the 9 months of our work. You can see the amount of people who got assistance thanks to our volunteers. This is more than 1,650 persons. So this is where our volunteers worked to demolish, for example, rubble or debris. Some people got new windows or got their roofs repaired. In other cases, we helped to demolish rubble. As for social and infrastructure facilities, schools, nurseries, kindergartens, then we helped to restore roofs in the more than 165 buildings, and as for the windows, that was in more than 95 items. We had 798 trips, but now actually we have more than 800, because almost every day we go to the regions. And during one day, we can go on our mission to several regions, like Kharkiv, Kyiv, and others. And we can also work on around 15 facilities. And we have 40,000 requests. What is meant here? At the beginning of our project, we launched the Telegram bot for people to be able to join us. So they can apply and they can provide their contact details and also brief information about how these people could assist us. So they could actually specify some specific area of work or say that they can support us generally. And we are proud of this. And it is great that we have such a huge database of volunteers who are ready to help us. Here you can find the information about financial issues. So, of course, we provided our services free of charge, but if we could convert this in money, you could see how much money our works could cost. Here on this slide, you can see the volume of work that our volunteers could perform. This is before and after images. And around 95% of our volunteers don't have any experience in construction area. So we not only help people who are in trouble, but we also train our volunteers, because volunteers in our teams can get the qualification in construction. And after going through, so to say, school of our Dobrobat, they can continue their career in the construction area and to earn money for their families. We're also proud of this. You can see here on the screen social infrastructure facilities like school. Here you can see how we usually repair roofs. I would like to say that we will share the report that we can see now on the screen to all journalists who are present here or who are watching our briefing online. So they will be able to get all pictures and all numbers. I would also like to focus on the fact that we could not have reached our levels without cooperation with governmental authorities, and we would like to thank them for this. Of course, we continue expanding our cooperation. This is one of our points of growth, and you can see the amount of administrative institutions that we have involved in our work. Our partners, the organizations that have supported us with money or fuel or tools or other materials, and the number of the partners is constantly growing. Media support. We also have ambassadors, and they are very efficient in increasing public awareness of our project for more people to join us. And this is our plans for the next year. Of course, we would like to expand our teams. We have an ambition plan to launch our project in Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, because we are all waiting for these regions to be liberated. And quite soon we are going to launch a new battalion in Dnipropetrovsk region. Social entrepreneurship. This is an idea that we are discussing now. We are trying to understand how we can make our project more commercial. For example, some brigades or teams can fulfill commercial tasks, and we can use the money earned to support the work of our volunteer battalions. And of course, in every new region, we are going to have new battalions. We'll have coordinators of our project. And as for international relations, we have been trying to find different partners abroad, foundations, donors, NGOs, philanthropists. This helps us to strengthen the basics, the basis of our project. If we repair, or we of course now repair windows, roofs, we demolish rubble, but we would like to extend the range of our services. And now we would also like to provide renovation services. And the capital construction. Of course, these plans are rather ambitious, but anyway, we have been considering it already. We have now an idea of reconstructing the whole districts. We have negotiated with the management of Irpin in Kiev Oblast to reconstruct in the future like 2- or 3-story buildings or the complexes and the housing complexes. So we don't have not only ideas, but we have the expertise and the opportunities to organize these scale of works. And we fight together. We will reconstruct our country together. Now, I would like to give floor to Yuriy to share the details of their activities in Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv Oblast. So, what you have done recently. Good afternoon to everyone. So, at first I would like to tell you briefly about my history. So, I came to the team who had already started reconstructing roof, and it took us 5 days to reconstruct the roof in general. But then we found the information that the project was going to launch the battalion in Mykolaiv, and I was also interested in that. So in Mykolaiv, I also started with the reconstruction of a roof. So the shells struck the area near the house, and a person there needed support, but that person could not even imagine that there is a group of people who were ready to reconstruct the roof free of charge. Local authorities gave us the materials that we needed. So there we started also from reconstructing the roof. And we have already done works on 50 or 60 infrastructural facilities, and our plan is to extend our activity. I know now that the situation in Mykolaiv and in the Mykolaiv Oblast is more, so to say, comfortable as it was in the summer, because the amount of shelling has decreased. So what would you like to add to your work? We are planning to expand our activities, but we also need the support, namely fuel. So we are trying to cover our needs on our own, and the battalion from the central level, of course, supports us, and we are trying to involve even more people. And we have experienced members of our team, those who don't have experience. People come, people go, but we have the core team. We don't have days off. We do everything possible for people to easier experience this war. So let's now learn about Zaporizhzhia. Good afternoon. My name is Andriy Razin. Actually, I represent the car business in Ukraine. I was representative of that industry from before the October of last year. In February, I lost my car center in Mariupol, and on the 11th of October, 2 missiles, S-300 missiles, they destroyed my second motor car center in Zaporizhzhia. And there were massive missile attacks in Zaporizhzhia in October, hitting the residential area. And back then, I thought that Zaporizhzhia needed volunteers to create the branch of the Dobrobat battalion that at that time was already in Kyiv and in Kharkiv. I knew the head of the battalion, Rostislav Smirnov. I contacted him and organized some volunteers for our first work. That's how we started reconstructing the facilities both in the city and outside. Around 70% of the Zaporizhzhia Oblast are still occupied, and the front line is in around 40 kilometers from the city of Zaporizhzhia. That's why a lot of people address us asking for help. But not in all cases we can support people, because when it comes to hostilities, there is a so-called gray zone. Apart from the planned facilities that we are going to reconstruct as soon as we get the construction materials needed. But there are also emergency calls. For example, on the 16th of Monday at 9, there was a missile attack, and the rocket hit the area in 5 meters from the block of flats. And the windows were destroyed in 5 houses. We have already reconstructed windows in 3 of them. we have also the donor department, which is responsible for dealing with donors and international partners. And with the assistance of USAID, we are going to reconstruct a nursery in Zaporizhzhia, nursery called Koropchik, Sparrow. So that was also destroyed during the attack. So we are planning, of course, to scale up our activities. There are fuel and logistics issues, of course. And we need more support of local authorities, because that could increase our efficiency. You will have the new head of the Zaporizhzhia military administration. Yes, and we hope that the new head will be more open. As for the for the new leadership, let's get to Kherson. Larysa, can you share about activities of your organization there? And you know that 2 times a week, I just lie somewhere on the floor, or I try to hide behind the fence because the shelling is ongoing, and you have just 5 seconds to hide. Because, but actually, we understand that we don't know what are their targets, and this is just a mere luck if you can survive. And when the liberation started, our activities started from demolishing the Russian boards. And people actually were eager to support us. And on the 4th of December, we visited a settlement near Kherson, where we were asked to cover the roof, because it was damaged by a missile. And I think I will never forget that facilities. When we come there, it was very foggy. There was ice on the road. We put on these beautiful jackets of our battalion, Dobrobat. We got on the roof, and then we heard a drone, and we thought that that was our military trying to find something. But in 15 minutes, they started attacking us with the mortars. And actually, the first mine was quite far from our facility. The second one was closer, and the third one hit the area in 2 houses from us. I never thought that it was possible to get off the roof so quickly. We were like monkeys jumping down on the ground. Then we just stood near the house. There was no place to hide. And so we thought for a while, and then we got back to the roof to continue covering it with the canvas. But the most interesting and the most horrible thing that the volunteer I was working back then was lost his leg because there was the shelling of the center of the city. And this is our story. So it is insecure, extremely insecure to be here. And a lot of people who left Kherson, not only the city of Kherson, but the Kherson Oblast, tell me, and they say that they are ready just to go to there to reconstruct everything. But I cannot ask them to do this, because we still have to wait for the victory. Because after the victory, we will be able to demine and reconstruct everything. I have a question to you. As for Mykolaiv, I visited Mykolaiv last summer, and there I met a person living behind the Ingul hotel that was hit by the missile. And that is like a 3 or 4 story block of flats. And I asked that person why they were hesitant to put new windows there, but he said that they were waiting for some new attacks, and perhaps that was the initiative of local authorities who were responsible for glassing. So, what do you do in such cases, not only in Kherson, but in Zaporizhzhia and Mykolaiv, because the shelling is a normal thing there now? What do you do in such cases? Is it worth to reconstruct something until the city is fully safe? That person whom you met in Mykolaiv is partially right, because you cannot be sure for 100% that you won't be hit. And actually, there is no safe place in our country. But our task is to preserve warmth in people's houses. So we cannot, of course, install new windows, but we can use canvas or film to cover their windows or holes in roofs. And so we use a special film to cover the windows in destroyed houses for people to be at least warmer in their houses. Yes, that person was right. So we can put windows, but there is no guarantee that they wouldn't be destroyed like the next day. Michael, Larysa, do you have any questions? Because I still have some questions myself. Unyan, how often do you have to return to the place that you reconstructed before? Are you asking me? No, it's actually the question to everyone. In Mykolaiv, I had no such cases, so we have not returned to the previous facilities yet. As for Zaporizhzhia, we have the orphanage for children with disabilities. And it was hit like several times with 2-3 missiles every time. And we actually clean up the place there. And then in a week, there was the new strike in the second building of that orphanage. During November, we visited that facility around 4 times because it was hit 4 times. But we did not reconstruct it in November. We started reconstruction in December. As for Kherson Oblast, we had such case. So when we covered roof and windows with the film, with the canvas, and just in a week, actually everything was damaged again. So we had to visit that facility once again. But these cases are very frequent. Sometimes we arrive to the facility in the morning just to take to measure something, but at noon the house is damaged again. Can you share details about your cooperation with local authorities? So you've mentioned that they provide some materials, and what else? Local authorities, they try to support us when they have such opportunity. As for specific examples, then they can support us with logistics. But this is only about Kyiv Oblast, because the situation in different regions is different. So I can speak about Kyiv Oblast. Irpin administration helps us with buses. So they have this route Kyiv-Irpin, and we use their buses to bring volunteers from Kyiv to Irpin. And this is a great advantage, because when it comes to the whole Kyiv Oblast, Irpin is the area that is like about 70% comparing to other work, because we have the resources there. As for Vyshgorodsk district, we have a member of parliament who supports us with materials. So, for example, we can visit the facility to measure everything, and then we make a list of the materials that we need. And the person, for example, provides us with the slates. And the cooperation with local authorities is ongoing. This is our constant and permanent request. Because our work also supports local authorities, so we provide aid to them as well, because they're responsible for supporting people in their regions, and we are a resource that can assist them, and that's why all the time we address them. Thank you. The next question. Michael Vasura, Newsweek Journal. How do you find your volunteers? For example, if you work at some facility in Bashtanka, can you find volunteers there on the spot, or do you bring people from Mykolaiv or Odessa? So how do you find volunteers for your activities? As for Mykolaiv, we have a Telegram channel. So we have these Telegram accounts that tell people about our work. For example, after we finalize work at some facility, we publish information about this, and people just see that information and join us. I can also add a few details here. Because we have some internal processes that allow us to involve new people. For example, we can post information about our activities. I've mentioned already the Telegram bot, where we have more than 40,000 applications. So these are real people who offer their help for a specific facility. Every time we publish information about the facility we are going to reconstruct, we provide details about whereabouts of the facilities and the work to be done. For example, if we post that we need to repair a roof there, so the people who have experience or who are not afraid of hate can join the process. It is easier to involve people for cleaning up the territories, and women join that works too, because it's easier to do. We and the information that we get from people who want to join us is consolidated in the Google Sheet, and then we can have the accumulation point for these people and then bring them to the facility. In Kherson, sometimes I get calls from people who learn about us from friends of their friends, and they just plead, saying that they want to join some activities because they cannot stay at home doing nothing anymore. Sometimes people were upset when they were not included in the list of the people who can join us at some facility. And but we have a limited number of seats in a vehicle, and people can even get really very upset if we don't call for them for their assistance. What is the percentage of destruction in your regions, in your oblasts, if you know? And the second question, what is the response of the people? What is the reaction of the people who learn that you provide your services free of charge? Yes, when you come, people first do not believe us. They can't believe that there are people who are ready to support them free of charge. For example, I'm from Odessa Oblast, but I come to Mykolaiv to help people. And at first, people, they don't believe us, but this is what we do. And not far from Mykolaiv in Ternivka settlement, there is the house that had no roof since the beginning of the full-scale war. But we managed to solve the issue in 2 days, and people could not believe us. And I still the owner of the house contacts me, just saying that she's very thankful to us. And it is very difficult to describe with words. You just need to feel this. And actually, people they cry when they see us off. And these are very tender moments. And we actually get our benefit from this. These are smiles of people. What is about distractions? And I can share some information. In Kherson Oblast, we get around 50 shellings a day. As for Kherson territorial community, there are around 1,500 destructions. This is according to the official information. And the majority are houses. But as for oblasts, there are villages that are fully destroyed. So this is the last question. As for the villages, as for Posad, Pokrovsky, and Luch, this is Mykolaiv Oblast, if I'm not mistaken. What is your forecast? So I was in Kherson Oblast, and in one of the communities, a woman approached me saying that they needed to preserve school because school means life for villages. And we know that if schools and hospitals are reconstructed, then the life will be returned to that villages. And I believe that in Posad Pokrovsky, everything will be fine. We're going to visit it. Also, it is heavily mined. Thank you. Thank you for being with us here. Thank you for sharing information about your activities. Thank you for what you do, and I hope that you will have less work this year because of the decreased number of shelling. At 4 p.m., just in an hour and a half, we'll have the online briefing of the Minister of Defense in Slovakia. The briefing was postponed because they wanted to share some great news with Ukraine. So stay tuned and be with us at 4 p.m.